Hello trainees, today we are going to learn about woodwork technique on how to make single dovetail joint. Before we start, let's understand what dovetail joint is. The dovetail joint is very strong because of the way the tail and the pin are shaped. This makes it difficult to blow the joint apart and virtually impossible when it is glued. This type of joint is used in the construction of boxes, drawer, cabinets, etc. where the strength is required. The objectives of this video is to make you able to mark and make the single dovetail joint at the end of the exercise. So let's begin. Before we begin with the making of single dovetail joint, let us first have the tools ready in hand. The tools which we need to have it ready are steel rule, marking knife, measuring tape, pencil, tri-square, marking gauge, cross-cut saw, bevel edge chisel, F-clamp, mallet, jack plane, tenon saw, and vise or bench vise. Let's start. Let's begin by taking two wooden pieces. Cut and trim them to the required size. Step 1. The first stage is to mark out and cut the tail. Place one piece of wood vertically on top of the another as shown here. A pencil is used to mark the thickness of the material. Do this carefully and check the marking has been completed accurately. A marking knife and a tri-square are used to mark all the way round the material followed by the pencil line. It is possible to use only the pencil, but a marking knife is more precise and it holds the advantage of cutting the wood fibers. This means when a saw is used to cut the joint, the surface of the wood is less likely to split. The cutting would be more precise. Remember to mark all the way around the wood, all four sides at one end of the material. Now measure the shoulder line for the dovetail pin. Adjust the marking gauge to the thickness of the pin member. Scribe the shoulder line all the way around the tail member using the marking gauge. Thereafter, highlight the marks with the pencil. Step 2. Mark out the tail on the wooden piece to cut out the dovetail. You can even scribe the tail with freehand marking the tapper at the required dovetail angle. Remember to mark out the waist by shading it with a pencil. This will help you to avoid cutting away the wrong part of the joint. It should look like this when you are done. Step 3. Support the wooden piece with the scribed end up to the bench vise and cut along the waist side of the cutting line using the cross-cut saw. When cutting, it is important to cut to the waistward side of the line. It should be possible to see the marking outlines after the saw has been used. Reset the wooden piece to the bench vise and trim the wood from the other side. The wood is then turned sideways in the vise and the waste materials is finally removed by using the cross-cut saw. Take extra care not to cut too far down the joint. 2 pieces of waste materials have been removed using this technique. Step 4. Support the tail member with an F clamp on the wood bench to hold the wood firmly. Place the scalp wood underneath to protect the surface of the bench from the chisel and under the clamp jaw to protect the wood piece. Step 5. Once the tail member has been secured, use a chisel and a mallet to clean up the joint and to remove the excess wood from the tail member. If required, use a firmer chisel to clean and finish the joint. If required, use a firmer chisel to clean and finish the joint. The first side of the joint, called the tail, should now be completed. Now let's look at the procedure to prepare the pin. Marking out the pin is the second part of the joint is next. Step 1. First, mark the thickness of the material in the same way as you did for the tail side of the joint. The completed tail is placed above the second side and the pins are marked out. Again, a pencil is used, although the traditional tool will be the marking knife. Adjust the marking gauge to the thickness of the tail member. Scribe the shoulder line all the way around the pin member using the marking gauge. Step 2. Mark out the size and position of the pin using the tail member as a template. You can even scribe the pin freehand, marking the taper that requires the dovetail angle. Remember to mark out the waist by shading with a pencil. This will help you to avoid cutting away the wrong part of the joint. It should look like this when you're done. Step 3. Support the wooden piece to the bench vise with scribed end up and cut along the waist side of the cutting lines using the cross-cut saw. When cutting, is important to cut on the waste wood side of the lines. You should be able to see the marked out lines after the saw has been used. Trim the wood from the other side. Step 4. Support the socket member with a G-clamp on the wood bench to hold the wood firmly. Place a piece of scrap wood piece underneath to protect the surface of the bench from the chisel and under the clamp jaw to protect the workpiece. Step 5. Once the socket member has been secured, use a chisel and a mallet to clean up and remove the excess wood from the pin socket. If required, use a firmer chisel to finish the joint. The pin socket joint is now complete. Step 6. Now you are ready with your tail and pin member. All you have to do is to dry fit the tail in the pin socket. The joint should fit together perfectly if care has been taken carefully when marking out and cutting the two sides. Now you have the single dovetail joint made ready. Let's quickly recap. In this video, we have learned how to make a single dovetail joint and also the simple technique to make it. Hope you have understood everything taught in this session. See you in another video. Thank you and goodbye until then.